Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this panel. So privacy, it's a foundational principle of much cypherpunk philosophy, a core tenet of financial systems, and what, very important to many of us as a fundamental human right. And definitely, I think the last year we've seen quite a lot of developments that I think raise a lot of questions as to how privacy integrates with blockchain and protocol ecosystems. So today we have this esteemed panel to talk about it. Myself, my name is Min. I'm a managing partner and founder of Ethereal Ventures, which was established by the former investment team of Consensus. And we're very privileged to have been investing in privacy protocols since 2018. And I'll pass it on to Zach, Harry, and Isa to introduce themselves.
Hi everyone, I'm Zach. I'm the CEO of Aztec. Aztec is a privacy-preserving layer 2 built on top of the Ethereum blockchain, where users can create cryptocurrency transactions, trade tokens, interact with layer 1 DeFi protocols, but to do so with strong privacy guarantees where both the identities of the transactor, recipients, and the values are all obscured. And so privacy is pretty core to what we do. We want to make blockchains private and make them mainstream.
Yeah, I'm Harry Halpin, CEO and co-founder of NIM Technologies. And what we are is Aztec, you can think of as a layer 2. We're layer 0. We operate on the level of network packets, like the peer-to-peer broadcast, beneath every blockchain. Somewhat like a VPN or Tor replacement for messaging, cryptocurrency transactions. And we honestly, we've launched. We're releasing a new roadmap today, so you can check that out. But we think that this is a once-in-a-lifetime chance to really rebuild the internet with privacy encoded into the code itself. And this will open up a whole new realm of business opportunities that were not allowed previously.
Hi, my name is Isa. I'm the CTO of Silent Protocol. And Silent Protocol is a layer 1 privacy-preserving solution that aims elegant, full composability with the decentralized applications. So we kind of completed the circle in the full stack.
We've got all the layers.
Yeah.
And just to follow up on that point, I think there's some nuances here with, sort of Aztec imbuing privacy at the protocol layer, Harry at the networking layer, and Isa with Silent Protocol at the middleware layer. And all of these, I think, it's definitely very distinct design choices, each with its own sort of potential trade-offs. I don't think there's any one-size-fits-all. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And maybe could you share a little bit of some of the thinking behind why you made this design choice in your architecture? And also what kind of use cases do you hope to enable on top of it?
Sure thing. So for us, we think privacy is really the missing keystone for blockchain technology. If you go back to 2015 when Ethereum was created, all of the original kind of cypherpunk visions of blockchain was to take existing real world assets and bring them on chain and digitize them, tokenize them, take illiquid capital and make it much more liquid and give users and individuals control over their finances. However, since then, blockchains are mostly used largely by traders and tech enthusiasts, and it's very much not mainstream. You're not really paying for things day to day with cryptocurrency. You're not doing investments in cryptocurrency unless you're a very early adopter. And the missing part of this is privacy. You cannot meaningfully have real world assets on chain if you can't link an identity to a cryptocurrency account without splashing that information all over the blockchain networks. And so for us, we very much want to effectively recreate the Ethereum tech stack with its programmable smart contracts, its composability, but one where private state is a first-class primitive of the network. So you can have private token balances, private identities. You can have NFTs with genuinely secret information, protocols where you can reveal parts about who you are without revealing everything. Things like maybe your creditworthiness, or the sum total of your balance, or similar edge case issues that you need in a lot of real world applications. And for that you need privacy, and for that you need pretty advanced cryptography, and that's kind of where we come in, and that's our gig.
Yeah, so I used to work with Sandy Pentland over at MIT. And he had this really amazing observation. He said, imagine you're watching a conversation and you don't know what anyone's saying. It's hidden what everyone's saying. It's encrypted, let's say. You just don't care. But you're watching who's talking to who and when they're talking to each other and how much. And it ends up with just that information. You can predict with like 70 to 80% accuracy what decisions will be made. Who's going to talk next? What's going to happen? This is what you call the metadata. The timing and the volume and the kinds of communication. So at NIM, after the Snowden leaks, the European governments came up to a bunch of us and were like, hey, let's build a kind of VPN that even if God himself is watching your internet connection, your ISP, the NSA, whoever, that they don't know who you're talking to. And this would be very useful for governments. And we said, okay, we'll build this for you. But then we said, this will actually be useful for everyone. It would be useful for normal people. It would be useful for cryptocurrency. And so we built this mixnet, which takes the packets and mixes them up, a bit like a deck of cards, when you shuffle a deck of cards, sends them through a decentralized network. And because of all this mixing, and we add in fake packets, when the network sends the packets out, not even an adversary, they can observe every single packet coming in and every single packet coming out can successfully de-anonymize and correlate the users on the network level. And that's very powerful technology that we think is necessary in the blockchain space, particularly for like any project that has a wallet, that wants to defend full nodes from client nodes, that has problems with DDoSing, so forth and so on.
So as you suggested, so the Milestone Paper for crypto is actually David Chaum's eCash paper. There, the problem is defined. Even if two parties would get along, the asset holder shouldn't be known within the internet world, of course. So it is, of course, a human right, but at the same time, because of the less known facts related with the privacy, and also since it's an evolving technology, when some of the users get used to some technology or some blockchain environment, they do not want to move their assets out of it. So for us, this was one of the main points, so that we are trying to let the users live their already trusted environment, and at the same time, we are trying to provide full composability with their kind of favorite decentralized applications. Of course, this can only be done in an efficient way in the layer 1 solution because of the different features that the decentralized applications can provide to the users without having any delay in the services, without having any other lifting of the assets or moving assets from their trusted environments also. This was the main concerns for us. So that's why we kind of built on the layer 1 solution to let the users have the full composability with their environments as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that definitely comes through is how technically complicated and complex it is to build a functioning privacy system. So definitely want to double click on that, later on in the panel. But I think maybe let's take a step back and just look at the year that we just had. So certainly there's a lot of, headlines on all the data cookie crumbs that we're leaving, how evil, big tech is. If anyone has sort of had their wallet tagged on Janssen, it's a really unpleasant experience as well. We all understand that privacy is very important, I think. At the same time, we've had the events of Tornado Cash and OFAC that I think has definitely sort of sent a chill around the industry to people with regards to privacy products. Personally, I think I'm a believer that privacy by default always. Otherwise, the system is not censorship resistant and it's not credibly neutral. And then you have to take a moral judgment of who is good or who is bad, and that's not what protocols are meant to do. But I just want to get an understanding from the panel. How are you guys thinking about this? With sort of, there's a very, very important mission ahead, and there's a way to do it. But there's also a lot of regulatory pressures that's maybe encouraging you to cut corners and all that. And I don't think there's a right way or a wrong way either. How has your team sort of processed a lot of these regulatory developments, and how are you thinking about it applying to your architectures?
Yeah, it's definitely a serious and important issue, and I think it's going to effectively, we're in for a bit of a long grinding battle of attrition, where ultimately I think a lot of the precedents that we're going to settle on for crypto have already been established with the internet, which is that you don't regulate content at the network level, just in the same way that you don't regulate traffic going through an ISP's cables. Where you regulate is where that content is being consumed, at the application layer. And as a protocol, what we want to do is make sure that those applications building on top of us can acquire enough information to actually be on the right side of the law here. But it's a difficult question to answer, not your question, but the general question of how do you build a compliant privacy network? Because there is no definition of that term yet. So all that we can do is build something which we think is morally legitimate, and then try and fight that battle, in the court of public opinions, in the actual courts, that this is actually how things should be structured. For us, one thing which helps a lot is the fact that the network we're building is programmable. So you can program your own custom logic into your private smart contract, and so you can program in your own compliance checks if you need them or you want them. And so we're hoping that eventually, standards will be established by the community based off of the applications, based off of the security requirements, and that the issue of compliance can effectively be decentralized and devolved down to the application builders and at that application level, and honestly, not be part of the mandate of the network to enforce.
Yeah, I mean, everyone wants privacy for themselves and not for their enemies. So, for example, even the United States CBDC prototypes, Project Hamilton, uses zero-knowledge proofs on-chain because they're well, the financial transactions in the US should be private, and only the US government should know them, and not, for example, China. Likewise, NIM, really, we come out of a European Commission research grant, one of the largest they ever did, in order to figure out how we could build network-level tools to help enforce general data protection regulation, how we could make data protection real and not just something you have to pay a lot of lawyers to do, but enforce it technically. And when you have things like the Tornado Cash case, I think what happens is that while most governments and institutions realize that they would like some privacy, they get very upset when they feel like someone's using privacy tech that they don't like. So for the case of Tornado Cash, I think it was very clear. It was U.S. national security apparatus was okay, someone from North Korea is using Tornado Cash. What hammer can we use to shut this down? And they chose OFAC very quickly. I don't think that was well considered. I think it was probably a wrong choice of instruments. Previously, FinCEN, the U.S. Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, has said that building anonymizing software and privacy software is legal. What is illegal is using it for illegal things. And so what we've done at NIM is we put together an industry alliance called the Universal Privacy Alliance with Electric Coin Company, one of the Zcash teams, Secret, Manta, so forth and so on. And we've hired lawyers like Ahmed Kapoor, who used to deal with OFAC and Guantanamo cases, something a bit more even serious than the Tornado Cash case, and which we've won some, in order to basically be prepared to both lobby governments to recognize the importance of privacy, educate the general public so people realize that everyone should have this as a fundamental right, and if we have to fight court battles, we're more than happy to fight it out in court. And I think, and I'm fairly certain we're going to win. And the reason I think we're going to win is because surveillance capitalism as a business model is not doing very well. The profits of advertising-based networks, Apple's doing pretty good because they sell hardware, but look at Google, look at Facebook, look at Twitter. They're running on empty. Even their own internal kind of docs show that behavioral advertising eventually goes to random almost in terms of how much profit they return for money put in. So there has to be new privacy-enhanced business models that aren't based on mass surveillance. Otherwise, the technology industry and the internet as a whole has a large problem. And we think everyone's going to eventually recognize that.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Eri, on this part. So the issue here is there's a one point that the national interests are coming towards. So because of the different national politics, there is some pressure that will be going on, and this should be fight against. I totally agree on this part. From this, when we set this apart, so there is one other case where the privacy preserving solutions may also be used as a shielded for the specific criminal activities. Yeah, this part is kind of hard to decide. Sorry, this part is actually when it is certainly notified that there should be some capabilities that can be acted upon it. So if some amount of asset is stolen, and if those are brought into some privacy preserving solutions, then it would be really nice to separate these kind of activities from the innocent part, so that the innocent people and the end users can happily use, or by trusting it use, and then so that they can be free of it and wouldn't be frightened of getting sanctioned through that. That's why from our side in Silent Protocol, we kind of trying to find a balance point so that in a decentralized manner, we are forming a compliance group so that at the certain case where this group can vote, and if the outcome is for it, then this group can provide the data that would be needed on the certain illicit activities. So of course it's still a debating issue, because in any cases, so there will be a specific occurrence that we can see both sides and conflicting and debating about. So we have some, of course we need to develop these kind of solutions in much further way. So the funny part is here, so there is a term privacy by design that was coined in late 90s. We weren't there, Web3 wasn't there, Web2 was evolving, but still, as you said, it was purposely declined, and the companies didn't include these kind of systems into their existing environment because of their business logic. So this should start to change from now on, I believe.
And now maybe we can move on to like some of the technical aspects of designing these privacy systems. And Harry, we were talking about buzzword bingo as it relates to privacy systems. Everyone loves zero knowledge these days. And as we know, a lot of like cryptography is also used for scaling blockchains and, compute, which I imagine must be quite frustrating when you're dealing with the day-to-day of like very heavy cryptography research and applied engineering. So Harry, maybe walk us through a little bit about like, what some of the nuances are with like, how does zero knowledge actually work in like privacy systems? Well, and especially for NIM, like, you're building on like kind of mixed nets, like VPN level. So thinking about the integrated stack, how should one think about it?
So the way to think about it is it's like a layer cake, right? You have a layer, the TCP/IP, UDP layer, and you have a layer on top of it, blockchains, another layer, L2s, and then apps, and so forth and so on. And privacy is a holistic property of the whole system. If, I may have a perfectly zero knowledge privacy preserving blockchain, but if the app asks for my credit card number, it has my credit card number, it can de-anonymize whatever is on chain. Likewise, I could be using, Zcash, but if I'm transacting with a Zcash wallet and I'm not using a VPN or Tor or the NIM mixnet, the full node has my IP address, and that can be used to de-anonymize me. Same with peer-to-peer transactions in any blockchain. So I think the key is you want privacy on all levels, and the more people that use the same technology, the more private everyone is. It's the anonymity loves company slogan. So, and what frustrates me personally is that there's a lot of interest, for example, in ZK EVMs, ZK rollups, but none of these really rely on the zero knowledge part. They all rely on the succinctness part. They're all about scaling. They don't actually provide, minus the work of Aztec, to be honest, any privacy for end users. And people just get confused because they see the term zero knowledge, but the part of zero knowledge they're relying on, the part of Starks they're relying on is to basically roll up a blockchain to proof, not to provide privacy. So that's why we recommend people work with actual teams which are competent in ZK technology, of which there's not that many. Aztec is one, Electric Coin Company, there's only a few, to be honest.
Yeah, certainly I think it's important to read the label before you buy, and actually look at the trade-offs. I think, for the many use cases, shielding is absolutely fine. If you just want to sort of do it on a transactional basis, but certainly I think once you're interacting on chain, there's so many vectors that you can be de-anonymized, and it's important to be aware of that. And most oftentimes I think people make the trade-off for convenience, but I think it's just important to make a knowing trade-off, not an unknowing one. And speaking about that, sort of products and sort of systems, Zach, you guys launched Aztec Connect, which is a way for people to use a lot of Ethereum DeFi anonymously. And you also recently launched NOR, which is the first step in your programming language towards a generalized privacy system. Can you maybe talk about some of the work that you're doing with bringing privacy to Ethereum and how you sort of see that longer term vision as well?
I would love to, yes. So at Aztec, we've had a big problem over, since the company was really founded in 2017, 2018, which is that we had this vision of programmable privacy, basically build something like Ethereum, but where you can actually have private states, and your transactions, instead of actually sending to the blockchain the actual instructions of what you want to do, I want to send 10 ETH from Alex to Bob, you send you send a zero knowledge proof that proves that the arithmetic of your smart contract is correct. And basically all you do is you just requested a bunch of updates into an encrypted database I made. And you're I'm not going to tell you what these updates are. It's just a bunch of encrypted data, but I can prove to you that I know how to decrypt this data. And if I were to decrypt it, I could prove to you that I follow the logic of a specific smart contract that exists on your blockchain, but also I'm not going to tell you what that smart contract is. Basically, you reveal as little information as possible. But the technology's not really been there to build that full solution, because ZK snarks, they're slow, they're hard to use, they're fiddly, the UX is bad. And so a lot of what we've been doing is research and development to really push the state of the art and make that stuff practical. And as a stepping stone to that, we launched Aztec Connect, which is, I believe, the world's first actual private ZK rollup, where what you can do is you can shield your funds on Ethereum. So basically you deposit your tokens into the Aztec smart contract. That smart contract acts as the custodian of your funds, and in exchange you get what we call zero knowledge notes, which are basically just the encrypted blobs of data that are stored on chain that if you were to decrypt them, basically prove that you have a claim to some of the tokens in the Aztec custody contract. And the idea is you can send these claims around, you can split them up, you can merge them, and you can also deploy them into DeFi protocols. So you can say you can take some of your shielded funds and say, actually, I want to put this into Uniswap. I want to swap it, I want to do an ETH to DAI trade. And what we do with Aztec is, because we're a layer 2, every transaction that goes to Ethereum is actually, it represents an aggregated lump of transactions happening on the Aztec network. Again, where the Ethereum network doesn't have to do any computation to process those transactions, because instead we serve a proof of knowledge, a ZK snark proof that proves that computation has been done already, and that everything that we're showing is correct. And what that means is we can aggregate transactions together, so that if lots of people want to talk to the same DeFi protocol from Aztec, we basically merge all their funds together and act on their behalf. And so all you see on chain is, instead of seeing, Zach sent 10 ETH to the Uniswap contract, you see the Aztec smart contract sends 100 ETH to the Uniswap contract, got some DAI back, and I'm going to take my DAI out of that pool, but nobody knows that I was part of that trade or transaction, and so your privacy is completely respected. And so this is the stepping stone that we've deployed on the way to a fully programmable network.
Very exciting. And now Issa, silent protocol, new exciting kid on the block, building in stealth for a year. We don't know too much about it online, but can you share a little bit about some of your upcoming product launches and what you'll be showing soon?
So in the early 2023, we will be mounting the ceremonies related with the compliance group and the trusted setup as well. And afterwards, when this will be completed, we will be deploying our system on the mainnets in the EVM-based chains, starting from Ethereum, then Binance Smart Chain, and also Avalanche. So that is the main goal for us. So in the same time, so we are in collaboration with the different decentralized applications, so that the silent users can utilize these decentralized applications without moving different applications. So within one application, the users is able to interact with the same DeFi protocols as they would have done without having any privacy. So this is also, we have been contacted with different applications. We have already finalized some business collaborations with them, and we are injecting these into our protocol as well. So I hope we can manage it within the first half so that we can see our protocol in the mainnet. That's the main goal here.
Very cool. So early 2023, we'll keep our eyes out. And I think we have a couple more minutes. Do we have any questions from the audience at all? Sure.
So many.
Yes, I was wondering in terms of like in a world that would be more decentralized, how would advertising occur, such as these days it's usually done through Google advertising, Facebook advertising. In a more decentralized world where these things will be harder and harder, how do you believe advertisers will play on this digitized, this Web3 world?
I mean, I'm personally kind of against advertising because it's sort of a form of mind control. But if you do need to do advertising, you can do advertising perfectly privacy respecting and decentralized ways. You're not interested normally in the individual's preferences. You're not trying to make an individual buy something. You are, but what you're interested in is aggregates. You want to know the aggregate preferences and to get aggregate individuals to buy things. And I think that's kind of, you can do that using techniques from privacy enhancing technologies to basically serve people advertisements for products that they're interested in without violating their privacy. And this can be done in a decentralized way. It just involves extra computation. So it's harder to build these kinds of networks. That's why Google doesn't do it right now. But it's definitely not impossible. So I know like Brave, for example, is looking at that.
I can add a small amount to that, which is that, like, I think one of the ideal solutions to that question is basically, you don't. You create alternative monetization models for the internet. Even something as simple as, imagine like, okay, so you go to a newspaper website, New York Times, and like if you want to read an article, they ask you to subscribe. Well, why don't they ask you for a pop-up saying, click here to pay like 10 cents to read this article? Why don't they do that? Well, one of the reasons is you can't, because a payment network of that sufficient complexity doesn't exist. If you use them with Visa or MasterCard, then you like an enormous amount of that gets taken up as transaction fees. You don't have a network what you really need is you need like a kind of like almost like Apple Pay for the internet, right? You need a decentralized permissionless payments network that anybody can just perform micropayments on very, very cheaply and efficiently. And right now that doesn't exist, but with the kind of technology that we're all building, that kind of thing will be possible.
And by the way, that's the original business model of the web. I used to work for Tim Berners-Lee, the World Wide Web Consortium. If you look at the early web docs, advertising based on cookies and user tracking was not part of the original design of the web. The web was supposed to be state-free, not in an anarchist way, but in a what's called a REST design architecture. And instead, there was everyone thought there would be a micropayment system attached to the web more or less soon after launch. It's just for some reason, due to technology, DigiCash, blah, 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 didn't exist. But now is our one-time, probably once-in-a-lifetime chance to finally build it.
And also one more thing related to this. So there are some incidents that are very specific to the individuals. So in 2018, as far as I remember, there was an op-ed published by a lady who were having a pregnancy. And during the pregnancy, since she was visiting different sites related with the newborn child and the education and the items that may needed during the birth, so because of these type of knowledge, all the AIs, all the advertising engines was just knowing that this lady is going to give a birth. So afterwards, they were showing all the related advertisements. But unfortunately, the process didn't go as expected. And it is really one of the hardest things for a person to face with. Yeah. So in that case, afterwards, she was having an issue and depression. And whenever she was opening her computer or her accounts or doing something, she was just remembering the same situations. So in a personal level, how people can get affected because of these kind of situations cannot be measurable, yeah? Because it's really hard to handle this kind of processes. And it also affects kind of, I can say, this is my personal view, that this type of business model starting to affect people's freedom as well. So for instance, you are going to buy something and you kind of look for around and try to search the review and then decide. And the same logic applies here. So because of this type of thing, all the false reviews will be there and you will be directed to somewhere. And all the sellers need to do the same thing because they were trying to get much customers as possible. Yeah? So this we should give up right now because it really affects people in both on the individual level and in the community level as well. So we need to change this type of logic into a better version.
All right, and sorry, just to close, where can people learn more about privacy in crypto?
Where can you learn more? A very good question. Well, you can go to our website. So we've got some primers, some tutorials, Aztec.network. But I mean, to answer that sincerely, if you want to learn more about zero knowledge crypto, I mean, I would highly recommend the Zero Knowledge podcast by Anna Rose. You know, I think it's like the best resource out there. You know, easily digestible. That's, yeah. If you don't want to get into the technical weeds of it, you don't want to like go into GitHub documentations and e-print papers. That's the place to go.
Yeah, we at NIM just launched something called Shipyard Academy. So Shipyard is where developers go to build apps. It's like our beta testing platform. The Academy part lets you get paid for learning about privacy. So we have privacy content, privacy lessons and tutorials. You can sign up and, yeah, you know, give it a shot. We'd be happy to have, we had about 6,000 people sign up last week, but I think there'll be another round opening soon. And, you know, there's not a good single textbook on privacy enhancing technologies, rather unfortunately, but there is a lot of material online and we've tried to consolidate some of that in one place.
Yeah, that's been said. The important thing here is that, so the key part here is people needs to learn how to manage their personal identifiable information. So the basic definitions related to these should be on hand and easily accessible. And because that is my right. So knowing someone likes football or any other thing doesn't mean that he has right to manage and store these type of data. So people first should start from this point and start to manage their own data. And most of the people do not like this, but it is how it is, and it should start from here. Otherwise, learning something wouldn't be enough.
Definitely, and I mean, I think there's a lot of history on, like, you know, the crypto wars back in the day that has very powerful analogies to our space and why we have to make very knowing design and consumer choices today before Web3 gets built without privacy in mind. So thank you everyone for listening, and let's give the round of applause to our panelists here as well.